So when it comes to hardware setup that we need, really we just need to kind of walk through everything I did. Microphone goes into the audio interface. Audio interface plugs in with either a USB or FireWire, or more commonly coming up would be a Thunderbolt plug, some kind of digital cable like that's sending data, not an audio cable. Aside from that, the one thing I really wanted to point out is that all audio interfaces are going to need to have some kind of driver. So you're probably going to have to install something in your computer when you get one of these things. And they can be bad or good. It used to be, speaking like completely, like frankly here, it used to be that M Audio gear audio interfaces sucked. They sucked so bad because the driver was really bad. The hardware was okay, but the driver was just really annoying. So the driver is the thing that talks to your, it's a piece of software, and it talks to your, anything that's really plugged into your computer. So like your mouse, if you're using a mouse that's not part of a laptop, that's like a separate thing, there's a driver for your mouse. It's built into the operating system, so you never see it, but there's some kind of piece of software that knows how to talk to whatever's coming in from anything you plug into your computer. So the audio interfaces need to have a driver. Some of them are built into your operating system, depending on what you're using. Some of them won't be. With the Motu stuff, you have to download and install something. You can find it online really quickly. It looks like this. It actually opens every time I plug it in. It doesn't look like much at all, and you can actually close it just fine, and it doesn't do anything. But it basically is doing a lot in the background, I should say. It's not doing anything. It's doing a lot. But the M Audio one, it used to lose track of the hardware all the time. So you would be using it, and then all of a sudden your software didn't know. It didn't know where to go, where that piece of hardware was. And so you couldn't get access to your microphones anymore, and you'd have to reboot your computer. This all the time it was disappearing. I've heard it's much better since then. I kind of gave up on M Audio stuff because of that, but I've heard that it's gotten a lot better. So maybe M Audio stuff is okay, but that was a big problem for a while, where I would be using something, even like a live situation, all of a sudden you've got no sound because the driver failed. So there might be some setup stuff you need to do with the driver, but probably not. It's pretty much plug and play at this point. So let's talk a little bit about the software setup in Ableton. When you're doing one of these things with an audio interface, you need to be sure and set it up. So let's go to Preferences. And then here in the audio tab of our preferences window is where we have the most important thing for this. So audio input device is either the built-in, or it also lists the Motu Ultralight that it sees. I'm not going to use the Motu Ultralight right now. And the reason for that is because I think that might screw up my screen capture recording, because the screen capture software is using that, and I don't want to confuse it by having Ableton use it also. It might be fine now that I think about it, to select it, but I'm just going to leave it not selected. So my input device is the Motu Ultralight. My output device, basically what are my speakers plugged into, I could set to also the Motu Ultralight, or the built-in output if I just want to plug headphones. These can be separate things, or both the same thing. So they could both be set to Motu, or they could be set to totally separate things. You can configure your inputs and your outputs if you want. I'm using I'm set up right now with the built-in microphone, so it's just letting me do the 1 and 2, but I could turn that off, and now it says there's nothing set up for an input, so we don't do that. So I'm going to cancel that. So yeah, just just be sure you're set up here as your input device is set to the Motu Ultralight, or whatever your piece of hardware is what will show up there. And the driver of the hardware is what tells Ableton to put that piece of hardware in this list. So that's important. Otherwise, we can also set up our sampling rate here if we want, our buffer size and things like that. Things we've talked about in the first class, but now they become even more important. So be sure you're configured correctly here with your audio interface. so that your microphones are coming through. And then you will see them coming in to any audio track that's armed, or not armed to record, but is set up to receive an audio signal. Okay, now that we have our interface set up and we know what we're talking about with interfaces, let's talk about microphones just a little bit.